Sekeres Price for Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver, where the Sekeres Price rate is back. So why don't you turn game night into a game weekend or make it a staycation here? Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Mention Sekeres Price. Some blackout date supply based on availability. Matt Sekeres, glad to be back alongside Blake Price, Jacob Lazar, hitting switches, conducting things. We got a big show coming up. First, thank you to you and Jeff and Irv for filling in for me over the last couple of days.
It's fun. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We actually had some stuff to talk about. Busy weekend.
Indeed. Very busy week.
And then the Canucks back at the golf course. Lots going on.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the Canucks.
Carmen and I made our pilgrimage to Soldier Field in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I figured if Caleb Williams was in fact Jesus, then Soldier Field was Bethlehem, and we wanted to be in the manger.
Wow.
We packed our myrrh.
Grand proclamations.
We packed our myrrh. We packed our frankincense.
You did.
We spent gold getting there and on the tickets. And, we saw a win. That's all that matters.
Did you sleep in a stable?
At halftime, I was calculating the dollar per passing yard that I was watching before me, because he didn't hit 100 yards.
But they won.
They won the game. That's all that matters. Anyways, so a happy Bears fan here.
Well, the Seahawks and the Bears both had sort of, okay, well, it's a win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, we went to Cubs-Yankees at Wrigley Field, where the wind was blowing straight in from center field. You know, you're sitting there going as a neutral. I'm rooting for the Cubs, but I'm thinking, boy, I'd love to see Aaron Judge or Juan Soto get a hold of one, right? Like two of the best power hitters in the game. Soto absolutely squares one up, and the wind just blows it back into a lazy fly ball. Nevertheless, we had a blast in Chicago.
It's Chicago.
Exactly. You eat well in that town, too. You
Man.
eat too much. Oh, my God. The portion size in that city is just astonishing. Anyways, thank you to Irf and Jeff for sitting in here over the last couple of days. And look at this. Canucks season upon us here. I saw your poll question on Friday. Are you ready for Canucks season to start? Yeah, I sure am. Starting to feel that nip in the air, right? Autumn. Hockey season's upon us.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely excited to see what this Canucks team does for an encore and what the captain, Quinn Hughes, does for an encore after his thrilling Norris Trophy winning season of 23-24. And that's where we're going with today's poll question. Is it fair to expect 20 goals from Quinn Hughes this season? We will hear from the captain here in a moment. But first, Mr. Price, answer me the poll. What do you think? Is it fair to expect 20 out of Hughes?
Expecting improvement from Hughes is, to me, sort of like expecting improvement from the team. Like, both of them had transcendent seasons on the micro and on the macro here. So it seems really selfish, for Canucks fans to want more out of him. Yet when he's saying this, we'll let you hear it in a minute here. I mean, if he's putting it out there, if he's saying it's a goal from him, then yeah, I guess it is. I think it is fair. If fans and media had just unilaterally said, I think he should score 20 goals, that would seem unfair. Because if he's giving you 16 goals and 80 assists, then you should be just fine with that. But if he wants to score 20, I guess go score 20, Quinn.
1 year ago, when we were discussing the Canucks season and Quinn Hughes, I think we all had a general consensus that, look, there's upside still from the 76-point season that he put up. A lot of that has to do with goals, and can he score more goals? And this isn't the first time on the eve of the season where we've heard Quinn Hughes talking about scoring more goals. But the fact of the matter was, in the 3 previous seasons combined, and yes, one of those was a 2/3 of a season pandemic year, he had but 18 total goals. Well, he comes out last year and scores 17 as part of a 92-goal season. Look, it's a really big total for a defenseman to score in the National Hockey League. In fact, is Adrian Aucoin the only Canuck defenseman to reach 20 goals in a season? I mean, it's it's a really big number for a defenseman. I mean, scoring every 4 games, and that's just, difficult. But Quinn is a special player. And I'm like you, Blake. If he himself is talking about 20 goals, like he brought that up yesterday, and we'll hear it in a second, and he's worked it all summer, I also think he's probably fueled a little bit by the fact that he didn't score a goal in 13 postseason games, and we'll hear from him more on that.
Well, the second half was just dry, period. He scored a lot of those goals in the first half.
Right. So, I voted it is fair to expect 20 goals for him this season because, frankly, I don't think he is done tapping all that incredible potential. I don't think he has the upside remaining now off this extraordinary season that he did at this time last year, but I still think there's a little more there to get out of the Canucks captain and number 1 defenseman. So yes, 20 goals, a fair expectation as we get to our top story today, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Yellow Dog Spirits, and Foolish Winery. The captain speaks. We hear from Quinn Hughes. This is Jeff Patterson working the beat. And let's start with what he worked on this offseason, the aforementioned goal scoring.
Continue to work on my goal scoring. I think I can get to, the 20-goal mark, hopefully. I think we have, a really good team, great power play, and I know I'm going to get the looks where I can do that, just about capitalizing. So definitely worked on that. And then just seeing, my first time in the playoffs really and understanding what that's like and how I'm going to be able to create not more, but if I do create 1 chance a game or 2 chances a game to capitalize on that. And I'll see if I can do that.
I love 3 things about that clip. Number 1, the aspirational, let's get to 20 goals. Number 2, that he's still thinking playoffs, right? That he spent a lot of this summer thinking, okay, 7-game loss to Edmonton in round 2. How do we get past that? And what do I have to do? And then, Blake, that he name checks the 1 or 2 chances that he's going to get per game in the playoffs. And let's face it, you're going to get fewer opportunities in the playoffs than you do in the regular season when it's a little bit more wide open. And as we have long said on this program, the regular season is about chances. Sure, that's the process. Let's look at that. They have their chances and they lose a game 4-3, 3-2. You can still feel good about the process. In the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's about conversion rate. Nobody wants to hear about chances. Nobody wants to hear about process. You got to talk goals and you got to talk wins.
3 times in the playoffs, he was held without a shot. 3 more times he had 1 shot in a game. So that takes care of 6 of the games. And by the way, he had 7 goals from January 1st on last year. So the bulk of that damage done before the new year was upon us. But he's rejuvenated, excited, and I still think he's one of those guys that is going to fill out more. And he's going to get stronger, which I think bodes well, not only for his defensive stoutness and his ability to stay on his feet when power forwards are bearing down on him, but I think it also will help his shot. It's not a bad shot anymore. I don't think he had much of a shot when he first was arriving, but it got pretty decent. And I think it's only going to get better when there's a little bit more weight. And it sounds like he's going to work on technique as well, just to make sure that it is the very best that it can be. And ultimately, as we've seen, it only needs to get to a certain point because it's not necessarily about the blast. It's about well play shots. And he showed us that with the bad angle goals that he was able to score because he's that good at picking that pie plate above the goaltender's shoulder. So, hey, it only needed to be 3 more than it was. And so it's just that much better for him to get to 20. Let's face it. It's not going to be much above 20. It's going to be a 21 goal season at best. I don't think he's going for 26, but it's possible. He's got to be as good as he was last year.
He went on to talk about how he played 98 games last year, and that's the 82 in the regular season. He was one of the number of Canucks players to play all 82. That's 13 in the postseason. I guess he's counting preseason, maybe even the All-Star game as well.
Yeah, maybe.
But he went on to talk about playing 98 games, that he felt like he had the blueprint in terms of how to eat, sleep, and that he liked his game in the playoffs, but, finding ways to change games in the playoffs was one of the other things that he added there. And then when asked his goal to repeat as Norris winner, he said it wasn't necessarily to repeat lifting that trophy, but to repeat in terms of the process. And he talked about how he wanted consistency and even name-checked Cale Makar. And I thought that was a very mature answer and also a very political answer and a good one from a captain, because it's not about individual awards, right? It's team game. But that he acknowledged his Darby here, the other great young defenseman in the National Hockey League. And look, I understand there's more than just the two of them, but the two guys who are at the top of the heap now, the last two Norris Trophy winners, Cale Makar. Sorry, did Makar win it the previous year, or did his come?
Was Fox the year before that? Or
oh, right.
Yeah.
Anyways, nevertheless, Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, the two defensemen that stand out. So, yeah, I loved everything that I heard from Quinn Hughes yesterday as he met the Vancouver media here.
I think the beauty of being an elite defenseman like this in terms of rivalries with the other guys around him is that it doesn't need to be a blood rivalry with Cale Makar or Adam Fox or anybody else, because there's so much more that goes into being a star defenseman. No one criticizes the Art Ross trophy for their defensive play. You just win the Art Ross. It's just brass tacks. It's goals and assists.
Well, I mean, it is a quantifiable award.
It's a quantifiable award. But even the Hart, I don't know how much voters get into, the all-around game. It's going to be one of the top three scorers in the league, I think, more often than not, or just a crazy goaltender or defensive performance. But for the Norris in particular, I think it's going to be 3 to 5. So I think, every one of those guys is going to want to win it once for sure, maybe win it twice. But I think that putting some words in his mouth, as long as you're in that conversation every single year, you're doing your job, and you're going to have one hell of a career. Yeah. And you've probably put your team in a very good spot if you're certainly if you're a finalist, and if you're top 5, even just nibbling on the edges, you're going to be putting your team in a very, very good spot to win.
Erik Karlsson 2 years ago, remember, he had the incredible season. Right. Fox in 2021. Here's the other thing about Quinn Hughes, and gamers know this. He's a cover boy now. EA Sports, the new NHL game with his brothers, Jack and Luke. He is a Norris Trophy winner, but he is also, of course, an American by way of international representation. Born in the States, grew up in Toronto, but plays for USA Hockey. And as you know, hockey circles in the United States glom on to players like this. And so he was asked about becoming one of the faces of the National Hockey League. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool opportunities that have come forth in the last couple months. Was really cool to, grace the EA cover with my brothers, and then USA Hockey. That's going to be a really special event this year. But for me, it all starts with the process. And like I said, I have the blueprint of how you need to sleep and train and eat, take care of yourself. I mean, I've, had years where I'm injured for a couple games and you can't play or, do the things you want to do. So you just try to simplify what you're trying to do, what your goals are, what you want to do as a leader of this team, what your team goals are, and individually and as a team, and just go from there.
I'm not sure if the Hughes brothers were gamers growing up. I think it is sometimes easy, though, for some of us who are no longer gamers to appreciate how much the cover of EA Sports means to them. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this is an iconic franchise, the NHL game from EA Sports. And so to be on that cover, it is absolutely a nod that you have made it, not just nationally, but internationally. It's absolutely a nod that you have made it in terms of a NHL media concern in all 32 markets.
By the way, he was talking about his availability there a little bit too, being able to be there every night and talking about injuries. he's missed 11 career games. He's played 5 full seasons.
I mean, he's
5 full. There's been COVID seasons in there, but of the games that have been asked of him in the 5 years that he's been in the league, he's missed 11. I mean,
it's crazy.
They were worried. The little guy, the little defenseman, how's he going to deal with the wear and tear of the National Hockey League? He's doing just fine.
Yeah.
Doing just fine.
He was also asked about the Canucks offseason, and he gives a little snippet about this, or at least Patrick Alvin did on July 1st, when he mentioned he got a text from Quinn Hughes about the signing of Kiefer Sherwood and how much Hughes enjoyed that signing because he was a pain in the ass to play against in the first round playoff series against the Nashville Predators. So he gets asked about the offseason yesterday, and here's what the captain had to say.
Yeah, I think we added a lot of depth. Really excited about some of the pieces that we did add, and I know, playing Kiefer in the playoffs, what he brings, and DeBrusk has been a really good player in Boston for a long time, and really all the guys we added. So I think we're a better team than we were last year, and we'll just have to continue to gel as a team and move forward and see what we can do.
Now, many would argue they're not as good a team as they were last year, that they're weaker at center ice with no Elias Lindholm, that they're weaker on defense without Nikita Zadorov. Of course, you don't expect current Canucks to say that. But in terms of the routes to being better, well, we've talked about it a little bit here. Quinn Hughes going even above and beyond the spectacular season that he had. Elias Pettersson, of course, bouncing back from what was a quiet second half. The power play doing better than what it did towards the second half, and particularly right at the end of the year and through the playoffs. And, of course, a healthier Thatcher Demko, who doesn't have to miss a month of the regular season. And incidentally, Adrian Aucoin is the only Vancouver Canuck defenseman with 20 goals in a season, 23 in the 98-99 season. It's not only the Canucks record, it's the Canucks record by a wide margin. Doug Hallward, 19 goals in 1982 and 83. And of course, that was a high-flying era. For those of you who missed it, there were a lot of goals in those days. Rick Lance, 83-84, was 18 goals. And then Reinhart, Talon, Lume, Jovanovski, and yes, Quinn Hughes, again, all put up 17 goals.
Reinhart does it if he's healthy. Reinhart misses 15 games that season.
Right.
He gets to.
Well,
he gets to
3 goals in 15 games for a defenseman. That's still a pretty big ass, Blake.
It's something. Like, he has to be there, but I think he gets there. He was a 20-goal scorer in his career, but just not with the Canucks.
Vancouver Canucks. So yeah, if he were to get to 20, that would put him second all time on the Canucks list of goals by defensemen within a season. And Blake, if he eclipses the franchise record and gets one more than Aucoin, scores 24 goals, just hand him the Norris right there and then.
You'd think, yeah. Bob on Brian, pardon me, on the YouTube comments, 20 goals, 82 assists,
beautiful.
102 points
I love
for
it.
Quinn.
I love the symmetry. Well done, Bob.
Wants the 100-point mark too. My goodness.
Well, I mean, we were kicking that around as maybe the poll as well here today. I mean, you're at 92, Blake, and you think you can improve on your goal scoring.
See, I think you can get to 80 assists. I think Quinn Hughes will have an 80 assist season.
5 more assists, 3 more goals, as Bob says. That gets you there.
Yeah.
Even 18 goals and 5 more assists. Sorry, 19 goals. No,
he was 75 assists.
So right. Yeah. 75 assists would get you there. Anyways, looking forward to the season and what Quinn Hughes does for his encore. Now, Jake Milford Charity Golf Tournament yesterday out at Northview, sort of the unofficial kickoff to Canucks season. And there was a lot of content produced from Canucks in-house media from the event. And Blake and I have been there before, doing shows before. It's a really fun event. Everybody's optimistic, of course, because it's preseason. It's a fun environment. guys like to chirp each other, have some fun. Of course, you've got some really good golfers there, like JT Miller, who has tried to qualify for U.S. Opens in the past.
And they're still over a week away from camp, so they're in a good mood about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you also have some really terrible golfers there, right? Guys who don't play regularly and, well, play once per year, basically, at the charity tournament, but turn out with their teammates. Thatcher Demko, conspicuous by his absence.
And I'd wondered aloud this on the Friday show, I guess, before. Not because there was a right and somebody was like, why are you judging the person? I wasn't judging at all. I was curious what they would decide. Because there's no right or wrong there at all, as we chronicled on that very show. Playing golf is a lot different than playing NHL goaltending hockey. Like those are two different physical demands. And we know that Thatcher's been playing hockey, playing golf. He actually played in a charity golf tournament, I think, a week or two ago. So,
and every time he plays at Northlands, we get a note from one of the marshals or regular players there. Like, guys, Thatcher Demko's here. He's swinging the club.
So he is playing, but just doing it with the company time. It's just an optic thing that the club might want to just avoid, just for the headache of it all.
I'm not even sure it's the golf related. I think it might be the media related.
It could be that too. Yeah.
Give it another week.
Yeah.
He'll talk when he gets to training camp.
Yeah.
And when the club has another week's worth of information, right? And particularly if you think there's going to be good news there and that he will be ready for some degree of camp, preseason, or at the very least, start of the season and the season and home opener against Calgary.
And news is percolating through of like a slow ramp up here. It sounds like he's adding activities and on ice stuff here as we go.
I got to say, though, and I know you guys covered this on yesterday's program, but seeing that comment from Elliot Friedman that surgery isn't going to make this better, this is something that he's just going to have to learn to live with and play through, that's almost more disconcerting to me than surgery.
Yeah, you can make that argument. Depending on the surgery, some surgeries you come out and you're definitively better. Some you wonder.
Right.
But yeah, I hear you.
But that there's no permanent fix here. And look, the last few weeks we have spent a lot of time talking about Artur Silovs. And I think it is, if what Elliot says is true there, and I have no reason to disbelieve him, that means absolutely Artur Silovs is going to have to be everything we think and hope he can be, and maybe over a larger sample of games than we would have expected in a normal starter backup world.
And I don't know if this is even possible with a goaltending brain, but is it time for Marco Terenius, and with some aid from Ian Clark maybe, to get into the lab, if you will, and see if getting him out of the reverse VH on the frequency that he's in it now is better for his overall health. Like, we know that they might be amongst the league leaders in the demands in the reverse VH position, and maybe he shouldn't be in it as much.
Well, and hearkening back to Kevin Woodley, when we had Kevin on the program last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, he mentioned there is some debate in goaltending circles about whether that most unnatural position is something that long-term, short-term certainly is the way to go, but long-term, what does that do to your goaltenders? And are you better off sacrificing some of that immediacy in terms of, well, this is the best way to play it, with the longer game in mind of the player's health? We shall see. The other thing, and this became clear on July 1st or thereafter, I forget exactly when Vincent Desharnais first met the media here in Vancouver. It became clear during the summer when Desharnais joined a podcast, and Jason Gregor of Sports 1440 in Edmonton. And what was the length of that interview again? Like 40-some minutes?
Yeah.
So it became clear that Vincent Desharnais is a good talker, and it became clear that Vincent Desharnais is a pretty funny guy. And yesterday he stole the show at the Milford. Explain.
Well, it looked like part of the proceedings was a team-led panel. Connor Garland, at least for the clip that we see here, is the master of ceremonies, and he had a question for Vincent Desharnais.
We came up short of our goal last year. We want to go to the Stanley Cup Finals this year. What did you learn about being in that series this year?
JT Miller's an asshole.
Courtesy of Tom Zilich of Surrey Now, so
well
thanks
done.
to Tom for that. A great sense of humor, and like a lot of these sorts of jokes, there's an element of truth, I'm sure, in there as
no
well.
doubt. I mean, you hate playing against JT Miller,
Yeah.
and God knows what JT Miller is saying to the opposition out there.
Yeah.
The other thing I love about this is, JT isn't going to let sleeping dogs lie here, right?
Yeah. No, there'll be some revenge.
There will be return fire at
Yes,
some point.
I'm
It's
sure.
in the back of his mind, and when he gets the opportunity, he's going to come out
That's the good part about being on a team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So very much looking forward to the interplay between JT Miller and Vincent Desharnais as the Canucks season continues. And gotta say, Miller has, and I know sometimes he talks about how he doesn't care about media and he grumbles about it, but much like Ryan Kessler back in the day, from time to time, boy, he holds the market and all those microphones and cameras in the palm of his hands. And I do think he likes it. Oh, I think he enjoys it. I think he likes it.
Have we talked about Yellow Dog?
No, tell us about our friends at Yellow Dog.
Well, they're excited about the next couple of weeks and all the NHL hubbub. So if you happen to be heading up for Young Stars or training camp,
as we are,
bring your dog. Yellow Dog's Penticton location has opened up their patio. The dog park, the newly renovated outdoor patio that offers tons of space for everyone and everyone to hang out and drink some refreshing brews. Located in the heart of downtown Penticton, they've created great environment there for humans and, yes, dogs alike. Grab one of your favorite Yellow Dog brews and something to eat from the Hungry Monster food truck. That's it. Yellow Dog, a neighborhood just down the block as well. We can't wait.
I was there a few weeks ago. There were many dogs, including, don't you love it when the big dog thinks it's a lap dog?
Oh, yes.
And wants to climb into the chair.
Yes.
Saw one of those a few weeks ago at the Yellow Dog patio.
Yeah, we've got
in Penticton.
My sister-in-law's 70-pounder thinks it's a lap dog, and our Chihuahua thinks it's a German Shepherd. Yeah.
The big dogs, when they need to make space for themselves, very amusing. Like the big dog trying to get in the cat bed.
Oh, yeah.
The big dog trying to nuzzle in with the other big dogs and litter up. That's just good content.
I chased a black bear away from my garbage the other day, and the bear went to the backyard. I had forgotten to the last second that I had just moments ago let the Chihuahua into the backyard.
Daisy was in the backyard, was she?
So we ran inside, looked outside. Thankfully, Daisy's getting a little bit blind and a lot deaf. She passed within 12 feet of the bear, happily trotting by, completely unaware. But if she had known it was there,
oh my,
she would have taken it on, and God knows what would have happened there.
Not her weight class.
No.
All right. Jake DeBrusk, new Vancouver Canuck, big offseason signing. And look, there is a lot of pressure on Jake DeBrusk, not only to live up to the rich contract, but of course, he was specifically signed here to be that elusive goal-scoring winger for Elias Pettersson. Because when we discuss the travails of Elias Pettersson last year, the extraordinary first half, on pace for 100 points, the quiet second half, and of course, postseason, it was not simply an issue of Elias's level falling off. It was not simply an issue of knee tendonitis and having to fight through. And of course, the Vancouver Canucks have made it clear to him, look, that's the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's playing 82 plus games in the National Hockey League. You got to fight through it. But it is also institutional failure, as Patrick Allvin owned at his end of season presser, that they had guys miscast in the top six. Well, Jake DeBrusk is not miscast in the top six. This is a player with an NHL record and resume that would suggest he can not only score goals beside Elias Pettersson, but go above and beyond what we have seen from him in his career to date with the Boston Bruins. Let's start by hearing from the new guy, not on his seasonal goals, which we'll get to in a moment, but on how real it feels to be a Vancouver Canuck now.
Yeah, for sure. It was different putting on the blue equipment in the summer, but it's a little bit different when you're in the city, and it's one of those things where I've skated a couple times now with the guys, and just getting to meet them, and it definitely feels real. It's like your first day of school again, so it's one of those things where I'm just trying to get straight A's.
He was in a hockey market, so it's not as market as we've seen with other guys that come from, mediocre U.S. markets.
Yeah, but
it is so different.
The fourth team in a hockey market, right? Like,
yeah,
as big as the Bruins are, they're not the Pats, they're not the Celts, the champion Celts, and they're certainly not the Red Sox.
Yeah, he's everything here.
Oh yeah,
as he'll soon learn.
Yeah, you're moving to you're going hockey market to hockey market, but you're moving from being a Bruin to a Red Sox, so to speak. Coming to Vancouver, and
wait till he scores 2 goals in 3 games or 2 goals in a game or something like it.
Well, let's just hope he doesn't score on his own net on opening night. We know the last time big time goal scoring winger from the Bruins.
It's true.
To come to Vancouver. I'm not sure Louis Eriksson ever recovered from that. I'm not sure Louis Eriksson ever was able to handle the pressure of a Canadian market and the expectation. Here's Jake DeBrusk on his goals this season, and we're talking goals here, and he quantifies it. Take a listen.
Yeah, there's always goals. I mean, you try to do better on your previous year, but, I kind of want to get back to that 25 to 30 goal range. I think I can possibly get more if things go really well, but, at the same time, it's a new experience for me, and, that's something that I'm brought in to do is to score goals, so I'm just going to try to do the job the best I can and kind of I usually do my goals kind of month-to-month basis, to be honest with you, and I guess I'll let you know after month one.
There you go. Well, he has given a few things there for reporters like Jeff Patterson to check back on. Number 1, the month-to-month. How do you feel about your goal scoring this month? And number 2, 25 to 35, or maybe even more.
Interesting.
If things go really well. So I love the aspirational part of that. Twice a 27 goal scorer, once a 25 goal scorer. So look, he's put the target out there, and I think he's wise enough, because of course his dad is a media guy. I think he's wise enough to understand when you put that out there in a market like Vancouver, that's not going to be the last time you hear of it.
Well, it's interesting that he even admits to having those signposts or those milestones anyway, because a lot of guys don't like to admit that they even hem themselves inside their own brain, never mind outwardly setting milestones per month. But a lot of guys don't like to admit that they do it themselves, because then they feel like, oh, then I'm just going to disappoint myself. I don't know. I think it's having aspirations internally, at the very least, if not publicly. I think it sort of keeps you accountable and gives you a little extra drive. Like, getting the most out of yourself every night as a pro player, getting the most out of yourself in November, in January, those dog days, you're excited in the first month, but then there's a dip. And then, mid-season, when you take that, like, what are you going to do to get the fire, the 100% fire? They're always going to have 88% fire. Well, how do you get the 100% fire? I mean, little things like that. Like, I haven't scored in 4 games. Like, I'm going to go get a goal. I'm behind my pace. Let's go. I don't think it's a bad thing.
I agree wholeheartedly theoretically. I just think in practice, pro athletes don't necessarily go seeking for accountability from market.
No, as I said, publicly, I can understand why they wouldn't. But but some of them will declare that even privately they don't like to do that because it's too limited.
That's right. So, but he did. And look, the one thing we've come to learn, not too dissimilar to Vincent Desharnais with Jake DeBrusk, another new Canucks addition, is that he's going to engage in the conversation. That rather than wall it off like Philip Rourke, he's going to embrace it. And he's got the gift of gab. I mean, you already hear a future NHL broadcaster there, and I'm not even saying that because that's what his dad does, but the few times that we've heard DeBrusk speak here, and particularly with the weight of everything that happened to him in Boston off his shoulders, you absolutely hear somebody who thinks and talks and communicates the game. So let's hear from him again, where he fits on the power play, and how about that bumper spot?
I mean, it sounds like a treat. I think any player would say yes to that. When it comes in terms of the power play or bumper or whatever position, I think that I'll do whatever I can if I get the opportunity to do the most I can with that. And it's exciting. Obviously, a lot of skilled players, and it's one of those things where they had really hot stretches last year. I haven't done a deep dive into the numbers like you guys, obviously, but just looking at it from the outside in, it's a very dangerous unit that I think any player would be lucky enough to play with. So, wherever I get slotted in, that's kind of one thing I've been taught in Boston is how to be versatile. I can kind of play different positions. So whatever can help us.
Help me out here, Price. He's a left shot in the bumper spot.
Well, I mean, you can really change things around and put Pettersson on the left side, and then that works. And Miller on the right.
But look, he's right about the amount of talent they have on this power play. Quinn Hughes is a maestro, and so at the very least, you should be able to be successful on the power play based on the way Quinn walks the line and pinches down, and as you referenced earlier, finds those angles, those shooting angles, and with that pinpoint accuracy, scoring some goals himself, dropping down off the point. You also like, Besser's a smart hockey player. He understands movement. He excels in the half court. He has occasion he can score from distance because he's a good shooter and accurate shooter, as well as being a garbage man, a cleanup guy in the net front. Love that. And Elias and JT also with the big shots. I guess I'm still just a little bit scarred by what we were seeing towards the end of last year, where, I mean, there were a number of those penalties you damn near wanted to decline with the way the power play looked and how it sometimes sapped momentum and energy and attitude out of not just the participants, but out of the bench and out of the arena at large.
Why so the right-hand shot is great because Miller gets to feed it in there and it gets redirected.
So let's just explain what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If Miller's playing the left side, the left circle, and we love JT on that left circle, both as a shooter and as a guy who's coming downhill to threaten the goaltender from even closer range, it's just that's a harder pass to make unless he can create space and angles to feed the bumper spot.
Unless we get away from the be all and end all is teeing up Elias Pettersson. And as we saw, that was becoming difficult anyhow. So why doesn't Pettersson take it upon himself until there's a market correction defensively for this? Why doesn't Pettersson feed the bumper slot?
And Tocchet has taken a lot of this on, and he and his coaching staff have been in the lab. And so, based on the performance you saw from Tocchet and staff last year, you'd like to think they have this riddle solved. But I also would not be surprised if you have some experimentation and if it takes a little bit of time early in the season. And while that's not a concern specifically, let's all remember one of the formulas of success with the Canucks season last year was getting off to that great start, banking a bunch of points early, and seeing that confidence swell, which turned into a sublime first half. I mean, we were talking about the Vancouver Canucks as a President's Trophy team at the midpoint of the season. Well, heck, we were talking about them as a President's Trophy team until late. But a lot of that was built on coming out of the gates performing at a closer to optimum level than a lot of the opponents that were on the schedule.
Who's the best bumper guy on the Canucks power play in the modern era here?
Good question. I mean, Bo was
right.
Yeah.
And left shot.
Yeah. Oh, fair. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, you can make that work. Bo benefited from being so stout and strong that it was very difficult to move him. So he created a little extra room, but I don't think
DeBrusk has that.
DeBrusk's not a shrinking violet. Yeah. So I think you can make it work.
I mean, you tell me, I plead ignorance. Is DeBrusk as good a shooter as Bo was? Because
Yeah, people love DeBrusk
okay.
shot.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's a good comparison. You know, I think, yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's there. Those that watched a lot of DeBrusk say his shot is quite good. So, let's see it.
Is anybody saying anything about DeBrusk here? This season, we're going to try and incorporate more of you folks on a segment to segment basis, as opposed to, I shouldn't say segment to segment. We always include some of the audience thoughts when we recap our poll question at the end of every show, or the previous day's poll question at the end of every show. This year, we are further endeavoring to include some of your thoughts and comments in this opening block of the show as we take on the big Canucks topics du jour. So
Scott points out that, hey, Besser told JPAT outwardly what he wanted to score, but
that's right.
It took him a year or two to get there. And then Grim Studio says you have to pass through defender if it's a right shot from Miller. Maybe I'm wrong here. That's what they did with Horvat. No, you got a defender regardless. On each side. Sure. It's just generally the quicker release is a pass right onto the blade of a guy who redirects it towards goal, rather than what Horvat was so good at, which was a quick load and fire.
Yeah.
But I think DeBrusk is capable of that. So we'll see.
Young Stars this weekend in Penticton, and we'll be up there, Blake. And as a matter of fact, we'll be doing Monday's program from the patio at Neighborhood in downtown Penticton on the corner of Westminster and Winnipeg, and invite you all to come on down and join us at Neighborhood and Yellow Dog, two extraordinary establishments, and really a revitalized downtown core there in Penticton that I'm just so pleased to see as a annual visitor over the last 17 or 15 years. They have done wonders for the community and for the downtown there. So come on down and see us if you're going to Neighborhood. We're going to be at the game on Sunday. We'll be doing the show Monday morning from the patio at Neighborhood. The Young Stars roster is going to be released a little later today, unless I've missed something here in the last few minutes. So look, I think we're all fascinated to see Jonathan Lekrimaki. This is the Vancouver Canucks first overall pick. For many, their top prospect, the 15th overall selection in the 2022 NHL entry draft, a right-shooting Swedish winger known as a goal scorer. Last year with Örebro in the Swedish Hockey League, he had 19 goals in 46 games. And remember, they don't score as much there, so that's even better than what 19 and 46 would sound like in a North American context. He got to Abbotsford at the end of the season, played 6 games, tallied 2 points, including getting a goal. It was an extraordinary consolidation season for Lekrimaki because his draft year +1 was not great. Wasn't great at the club level, wasn't great at the international level. He got things going in the playoffs that year, where he was a point per game guy, 15 and 15 for Djurgårdens in the second division of Swedish hockey. So he took that strong playoff performance. He built on it last year. We anticipate that he at some point may get a look here to be called up to the Canucks this season, provided things go well in Abbey. And needless to say, he is with Tom Wielander, unable to participate because he's a collegiate player and thus will be back at Boston University for his sophomore season. He is the draw. He is the fascination for Canuck Nation as we head to Penticton for another Young Stars extravaganza.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody else is going to get the same level of excitement, though there will be curiosity players, certainly. And they might even bring in a curious free agent prospect as well, because I don't know that they even have the requisite number of players to dress the lineup there. And they like to have extras as well, because usually not a lot of players play back-to-back days. And they're playing back-to-back on Sunday and Monday. So we'll see. We'll analyze it later today and have that on tomorrow's show, but it will be it'll be interesting.
Look, I'm interested to see Elias Pettersson, the defenseman. And again, he came over late last year and played in 8 games with Abbotsford.
Yeah, as am I.
I'm interested to see Sawyer Miniu, who had a very good season. He was the 3rd-round pick of the Canucks in 2023. Wound up getting to 53 points with 63 games for the Seattle Thunderbirds. Big defenseman, BC kid as well from Kamloops. So I'm interested in seeing him. I'm also interested in seeing Tolopilo in goal, right? Because of everything that we have come to learn and worry about in terms of the Canucks' future goaltending, especially if Demko can't get this knee matter resolved. So I'm interested in seeing all of them. Not to mention Josh Bloom, the OHLer, right? You'll remember, acquired in the trade with Buffalo. He's a Buffalo draft pick. Buffalo sent him this way for, who was the defenseman again? Somebody's kid too, a former NHLer's. Anyways,
yes.
Bloom played in the Memorial Cup last year for the Saginaw Spirit. The defenseman they got from Chicago. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? They got him from Chicago for Dickinson.
Mm-hmm. Losing my mind.
Oh yeah, ditto. So interested in seeing a number of these young guys. The question we have going into this roster announcement: are they going to ask guys who played NHL games last year, like Arshdeep Bains and Linus Karlsson, to play in the Young Stars? And look, I have long taken the view that is not an insult. Like, by no means should an AHL veteran who has dipped a toe in the National Hockey League feel off-put by being put in a Young Stars
Riley Stillman
tournament. Thank you. But yeah, are they going to be on the team? And if they are, of course, the likes of Jeff Patterson, the likes of David Quadrelli, and the guys who will take in every shift of every game and summarize the full weekend are going to want to see them stand out, because quite frankly, they should stand out, even if it's hard to. I got Dave Tomlinson ringing in my ears, because we used to have Dave on from Young Stars every year, and he went, guys, it is hard to stand out at this tournament simply because of how disjointed and sloppy
very messy. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of guys who have never played with each other before, have very little in the way of practice time or anything like that, are learning each other's games and tendencies. So it's not like you see the smoothest hockey at the Young Stars, but you still are looking for standouts, looking out for people who jump off the ice, who do certain things well. 2 years ago, it was Nils Oman. I can remember watching Nils Oman from some of his first shifts in the first Canucks Young Stars game. And Jeff and I both sort of looked at each other and went, that guy looks like an NHL player, or at least looks more like an NHL player,
like a pro,
than some of the other guys out here, because he's the big guy with the long reach who knew absolutely what he was doing defensively and on the penalty kills. So
here's the other thing. If you're one of the AHL guys that maybe initially miffed when told that you're going to go play in the Young Stars, if I'm pretty sure, if I'm optimistic, if I'm betting on myself, hey, I think I can win a spot on the roster. I think I can make them really think long and hard. Well, getting that extra ice time in a more competitive atmosphere than captain skates, probably not going to hurt you. Like if you're Arshdeep Bains or Ratu or one of those guys, like you're only going to be more prepared for training camp, which is
the only worry is injury. That is the only worry.
Sure. But I don't think they don't think like that. They don't think like that.
They don't think like that at all.
It's just good
Nor
prep.
should they.
And none of those guys that we're talking about have earned any better. Like that's their lot in life right now.
Like if Bains or Karlsson had so stood out that we were talking about them fighting for roster spots,
and that they were wrong last year.
That's a different level of player. That is an absolutely, if you're fighting for a job with the big team in camp, then you are an NHLer or a fringe NHL or a guy on the verge of being an NHLer.
Mm-hmm.
When you dip a toe, get a call up in the NHL, don't really do enough to make yourself a regular, you're still an American Hockey Leaguer with road to go and improvement required. So,
and you're still not the San Jose Sharks from years gone by, who I think brought a 27-year-old. That would be tough.
Well, Blake, there were some years there with the prospect pool that the Canucks had where we were also looking at some of the names and ages of those guys and going, okay,
yeah,
you're 25, you'll be 26 in November.
Yeah. Prospect with a lowercase p.
You're at not so young stars.
Yeah.
Let's get to today's menu, brought to you by Greta Bar. Greta, great spot to catch the game throughout the season. Quick walk to the Rinker Stadium. Go-to spot for food, drinks, fun before, after the game. Of course, they have the amazing arcade, Make it a game night at Greta, 50 West Cordova, or at gretabar.com. In a moment here, we're going to talk to Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, and we have a little bit of news with regards to Cam and Elite Prospects. Well, Cam in particular. We will also talk today to BC Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke. If you haven't kept up, Nathan and the BC Lions and Rick Campbell all sort of came to the arrangement that, look, dropping him in as they dropped him in for that first game several weeks ago, 4 games ago, I guess now, was difficult enough. Getting him up to speed on the playbook, getting him gelled with that receiving core was difficult enough. They didn't want to overtax Rourke with having him do tons of one-on-one interviews. Well, we're a month in now, and we're 2 victories in a row in, and so now it's time. And so a great conversation with the BC Lions quarterback also coming up here on today's program. Now, time for our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price, and delighted to be back with them again this season. I was looking at some NHL futures. Hear my mouth here.
Okay.
Flames aren't going to be any good, right?
Probably not. They might flirt, but I doubt it.
Don't have a ton of offensive talent on the team. Now have some guys, but not exactly teaming with a lot of guys who are going to be flirting with a point per game or 100 points this year.
Mm-hmm.
Will Andrei Kuzmenko bounce back? He had a nice close to the season.
He did
with the Flames.
I think he does. What's bounce back mean in terms of the wager?
Does that mean he can fatten up on power play goals? And much like we saw 2 years ago with the Canucks, when you're trailing in games and you need goals and you're okay with your wingers cheating a little defensively because you need those goals.
Okay, we get the concept. Give me the wager. Give me the wager.
Kuzi to hit 30 goals at plus 225. And if you're a big Nils Höglander believer, he's plus 650 to hit 30 goals this year.
Longer shots, so just throw a little fin down on that or something. Yeah, I don't mind the Kuzi one either. Don't mind the Kuzi one. I'm just going to update my line of the day from yesterday because it's gotten better. And this is only going to be relevant for most of you watching live. It might be tight for you guys to jump on this for the podcast listeners because it's a 5:30 first kick between Canada and Mexico. Canada's up to now plus 210. It was 187 yesterday. So
did I see like a nearly vacant Azteca for a Mexico game last week?
It was Rose Bowl.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But still notable.
Tons of Mexican fans in Southern California, and in years past would have filled up the 90,000 seat Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
They are really down,
and they're in Jerry's world. It may not be much better today. I
know a couple of Mexican expats who live up here, and every time I mentioned El Tri and the football, they didn't want to talk about it.
No. Plus 210 is pretty good.
Yep. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS when opening that account. Cam Robinson coming up next.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Some price from the historic Wall Center, and this next interview brought to you by Mr. Lube. Mr. Lube and Tires. Change your oil, change your wipers event is on now. Visit MrLube.com to download your coupon for a free pair of Goodyear hybrid wiper blades with any oil change, only for a limited time at Mr. Lube with 18 locations in the Lower Mainland. And we're super stoked about this because our buddy Cam Robinson the director of content director for Elite Prospects, is not only joining us today, he'll be joining us Tuesdays throughout the hockey season. Mr. Robinson from Courtenay, British Columbia. Good to have you back on the show, and very much looking forward to chatting with you every Tuesday.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah, I'm excited to be sitting down with you guys every week and just spitballing on things that are going around with the Canucks, and maybe talk some young guys and some current stuff. It's great. I get to flex my NHL muscles a little bit here too.
Yes,
Well, that's it, because you know, we obviously follow all of your work, and it's so outstanding. I was like, I want to hear more from this guy on the Canucks on a week-to-week basis, particularly since he's a British Columbian and paying attention here to the local team.
Yeah, I don't think your takes stop when a player turns 20.
That's right. Yeah.
They absolutely do not.
When they get to the NHL, Cam still has takes.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It stands to reason. We'll just start broadly, generally. What do you think of their offseason? What do you think we're looking at in terms of this season and what's in store?
I thought they managed well considering the spot that they were in, right? They mortgaged some future assets to go for a run last year. And it worked to some degree, right? They could have quite easily ended up in the Western Conference Final there, and then it really would have looked like a serious win. But losing some of those free agents, that was very likely. I think that they did pretty well to replace some of the skill, some of the toughness on the blue line. Obviously the question mark is who's going to be healthy in net. And I think that that's going to be a massive kind of storyline throughout the season and as they push towards the playoffs as well. But no, I was okay with the offseason. I think that they were active and that they were wise with their money they're spending too. They didn't just go out and spend the entire budget on a Jake Gensel, which I think would have moved the needle for them. But they picked a younger asset in Jake DeBrusk, someone who's maybe a little more physically inclined, who could mesh well in that top six, all around that top nine. So I thought they did well with their targeting, and then they retained a player like Joshua that they put a focus on kind of the snarl, and then they have a lot of skill already in house with that core. So I think it should be a good mix, and that it'll be difficult to replicate the success that they had in the regular season last year, but not to say that they can't get near that level again.
Before we prognosticate forward, do we put the word like miraculous in front of the fact they got to 109 points, given the depths of coming out of the Jim Benning era? Like I don't think many people had them at 109 points that quickly coming out of that era.
I'm sure no one did. Even maybe the most diehard Canucks fans were maybe being like, well, this could be a 100-point team early on last season. And it's like, well, maybe they could. No, I think that was everything went right. Like obviously Quinn Hughes had just a monster season. Miller is a horse. Pettersson even down the backstretch fading. But then, Connor Garland was excellent. Joshua was excellent. Susie was excellent. Myers had his career year, right? Like Zadorov stepping in. Like everything really kind of went right for them. Demko playing at a Vezina level throughout the entire season. You can't ask for that. You can hope for it. And so again, moving into this year is that fans can hope for that to happen again and all the pieces to click and everything to fall into place. But more realistically is that there's going to be some hiccups along the way. There's going to be some injuries. There's going to be some dry spells. And so 109 points is just a massive accomplishment, especially for a team that's not, a juggernaut, that's not looked at to go to a conference final or go to a cup final year over year in their prime window. But another 100-point season, I think, is very doable.
105 is that like what should they be thinking in their head?
I think they're above a wild card team, and so those wild card teams are going to be in the high 90s, and I think that they should be able to contend for another division title. Whether or not they can pull it out with what Edmonton's done offensively, they're going to be putting up some pretty impressive scores this year. So maybe that's second in the division and in that kind of low 100 zone.
So is Edmonton the team to beat in the West, Cam, as you see it?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I still I have such a difficult time overlooking Colorado and Dallas. Those two teams for me, I think that they're so impressive as well, and more so Edmonton just has so much offense, right? But what if that breaks down, if it slows up, or God forbid there's an injury to one of those top two players, I think that they're susceptible to maybe sliding down a little bit. So I like those three teams, Colorado, Dallas, and Edmonton, to really be the cream of the Western Conference. And then there's that kind of next meaty zone with Vancouver included there.
Let's drill down a little further here. I think it's indisputable they're deeper at wing after all the work they did at wing. How do you feel about the center ice spots and about the collection of defensemen they have for this year?
Well, I mean, when you can roll out Miller and Pettersson 1-2, I mean, that's a pretty fortunate position for any club to be in. And I think that Elias Pettersson is going to, personally, I think he's going to have a statement season where, now he's got the paycheck. People are wondering, is this going to be the type of player we saw in the playoffs long term, and they have an anchor on the books? I think he's going to probably take that personally, and he's going to come back and have a really big and impressive season. So to roll out two, potential all-star centers down the middle, that's going to be great. Teddy Blucher on that third line. I mean, that's that third line with Garland and Joshua, has a lot of potential to be a real, kind of difference maker down the lineup. So I like their depth. You got Suter still as well that can play the middle of the ice. So I think down the middle, they're fine. On the blue line, I think, they replace some of that toughness like we talked about. It's a big, meaty back end, especially on that bottom pair, which allows, Hronek and Hughes to kind of freewheel around a little bit. I think that ideally the team would look to try to add another right shot defenseman at some point through the season. Is that Rasmus Anderson out of Calgary, which, he's likely to be available. He's probably going to be the top asset and will cost a lot. And they don't have a ton of futures at this point that I'm sure they don't want to move on Lekira or Vilander as we saw last year. So it'll be difficult for them to really improve that throughout the season. But, Rutherford, that guy, he's never met a deal that he didn't think he could get done. So it wouldn't surprise me if they make incremental improvements to that blue line, or, closer to the deadline within a month or two, that they make that kind of big splash to really improve that back end. Because I think that is probably the weaker spot right now.
They seem to think that Desharnais has another level to get to because he's played so few NHL games and he's got that incredible size and frankly, some mobility as well. Do you think Desharnais is more than just a third pair defenseman? Or are you buying the Kool-Aid, drinking the Kool-Aid on what they're pitching there on Desharnais?
I think it's easy to say that when you bring a guy in, that it's like, we think he's got more to give, and not to say that they don't believe that, right? And I've actually been impressed with their pro scouting of late too. So maybe they're right. The player that we've seen so far out of him is very, I would say it's limited. It's physical. Like you said, he can skate fairly well, especially for a man his size. He can snap an outlet pass, but nothing creative. But do I think he could play 16 minutes a night on a playoff team? Yeah, I think that he could probably be that. But wouldn't you rather him be your seventh guy? And I think that would be a better spot for him to be someone who steps in a really physical series, or if there's an injury, that's a great depth piece to have for you. But yeah, maybe he has himself a great offseason and he comes in and he's even a little more quicker and he can handle some of it's the handling the pressure on retrievals under duress, making quick, smart plays, especially when things get tight and faster, rather than just, going for the cross check, going for the body check.
Of those six guys that we know, Forbort and Desharnais are definitely the fifth and sixth best defensemen. But do they owe it to themselves to be a little bit more mobile? Like Soucy and Myers get around a lot better than Forbort and Desharnais, I think. Is that just going to be too big and lumbering on one pair to have those two guys?
Yeah, and it also brings up the question, is Tyler Myers like a legitimate number 4 defenseman at his age now? He did have the best season with the Canucks last year, so there's hope, but he's not a young man anymore, and the legs will slow down a bit for him too. So that's where kind of the question marks become at that 4, 5, 6 spot. Is that adding some more speed and skill there to kind of knock everybody down a peg, I think would be really, really useful, because you're right, that Forbort Desharnais bottom pairing, it'll be punishing. But imagine they get trapped on an icing call against the first line of somebody too. Right? And then
I'd almost be more interested in them in the playoffs. I'm a little bit worried about 1-82 with them, right?
Yeah.
Like the playoffs do get a little bit more old schooly, where I think the reach and the physicality is useful. But my goodness, like second Sunday in February, I don't know that sounds as appetizing to me,
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, it's a lot of questions still to be answered. Do you think that the wingers have the potential to live up to the expectation that people have of them? Like, is there a guy that's going to give his career best a 10-goal bump, a Heinen or Sherwood or whoever?
I like Jake DeBrusk to have a career year.
Yeah.
I think, he's flashed it so many times throughout his career and then run into an injury or ran into a cold spell. I think this is going to be a really excellent opportunity. You know, as far as age curves go, he's right in the prime of his career. Like, this statistically should be his best season, and he's going to be airlifted in to either play with Pettersson, which will be great, or I think he could also be just like a tremendous fit next to Miller and Besser. And that would be disappointing for Pettersson, as he's been looking for that winger to play with. But you know, if the glove fits, you know, put it on. So, and then he's going to get the top power play spot too. So there's going to be an opportunity for him. I think he can score 30 goals. I think he can break 60 points. That he's kind of that marquee, you know, signing that needs to step in. Now, it's never easy for a player when they first move locales, especially for the first time in his career. It's probably going to be challenging. It often is. So maybe he really pops in the back half, which is fine, because they really want, what they need is down the stretch and in the playoffs anyways. So I do think he's going to have a big year. But Heinen, a kid who's been, you know, connected to the Canucks for a lot of years, that they've been interested in him. I think he's happy to be coming here. He's kind of that kind of chippy, grindy skill player. And then, of course, you know, the signing that I might like the most is Daniel Sprong too. Just, it's so the low risk, high upside, and all this kid does is know how to score goals while playing 10 or 12 minutes a night. So if he's going to mix and match around the lineup, get some second power play time, that he's one of these guys that you can basically, you know, pencil in for 20 goals if he gets enough shots on net.
Assuming that DeBrusk and Pettersson play together, and they did make mention of that on July 1st, that they felt they had to go get a winger for Pettersson. Assuming DeBrusk and Pettersson play with each other, who would you like to see on the other wing?
I think it's going to be a mix and match situation as they find chemistry and they look to see which player fits with who. But right off the hop, I think it's going to be between Heinen and Sprong. I think that, you know, Hoglander is going to get a look there as well. He might get a look up on that wing on the top line. You know, Suter will be around there too. So it's going to be really interesting throughout the preseason and early season, which pairs will, you know, we know which pairs are going to gel together, but then those third wheels on those top six lines are going to be up for grabs. And then, because you have to think that third line is pretty well chiseled in stone. Now, I mentioned before DeBrusk potentially being a really nice fit with Besser and Miller. And if that's the case, like, is Pettersson going to be better served to play with Garland and Joshua? I just think that there's so many combinations that could happen with Vancouver's top nine this year that it's going to be hard to really pin down. But yeah, I like Sprong to kind of be the front runner for that spot.
It's the first time in a long time I remember a preseason which I'm legitimately intrigued by what they're going to tinker with, because they actually have options. They previously, it's been sort of written in stone because there's been no options available to them. But I kind of want to watch the preseason games just to see how all the different combos look.
Yeah, exactly. We complain about the preseason. It runs way too long, but this year they actually have something to, there's spots to be had, and there's chemistry to be made.
Yeah, we've talked about it already. Probably no real battle for roster spots. Like, the 23 looks locked in, but where all the chess pieces fit with each other,
yeah,
I think is the intrigue. Let's ask you our poll question, Cam. Is it fair to expect 20 goals from Quinn Hughes this season?
No, I don't think it's fair to expect it. 20 goals is a lot of goals for a defenseman. And, you know, especially for someone like him who hasn't been known as a goal scorer basically his entire career, you know, even as a youth player. So to step up as he did last year and start firing more pucks on net, which is what we've been asking for. It's like his shot has gotten to a point now where it's like, just put it on net, like, get it up. You can get it through. It's got enough snap to it. You know, he's not a big one-time guy, but he can get it through with accuracy. But I think that you can hope for 15. If he hits 20, there's a decent chance that he's pushing closer to 100 points than he was last season. And that's going to be another, you know, massive season and potentially another Norris Trophy.
It's he's a committed guy though. And that gives you confidence that he could, you know, reach highs that we haven't seen before. On the other side, the pressure only gets bigger and bigger. He's been asked a lot about, you know, being the cover guy in EA and getting the acclaim that so many Canucks fans wanted for him for so long. You know, he's underappreciated. He's in the Makar company and finally wins a Norris. And so he's getting the shine now. Do you think it affects him at all?
I don't think so. I think that he's grown up with kind of a spotlight on him too, and that family in general, right? Like he's used to the pressure cooker. I think that he thrives on it. They put the C on his chest, and all of a sudden he pops off for a career year. Like that's pressure too, right? And he handled it, seamlessly. I think he's a pro's pro. I don't think that pressure will impact him at all, really. And I do expect him to go out and push another 90+ point season this year. Like we talked about statistical prime, like he's still coming into his own. Like I think we could see another little level, like 100 points isn't out of the question for him, especially if that top power play can really click. If Pettersson can return to being a 100+ point player, those assets there, they can score a lot of goals, and he's obviously the best of the bunch.
He got a little bit tired, I thought, towards the end of the season.
Yep.
The walking the line stuff, it diminished a little bit. That to me, that's going to be the challenge. Can he look like, I think he's going to get shot out of a cannon in October and November. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that up in February when it's a grind. It's tough, and he's going to be, of course, a target for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I mean, like adding another offensively inclined defenseman to that blue line to take a little bit of that off of him too, so he doesn't have to play 24, 25, 26 minutes a night all the way through the season, because you do want him fresh come playoffs, and you want someone there that can, handle if he needs a night off or something like that, can slip up and move into that top power play position, or at least move the puck out of his own end with his feet or his hands, because there's not a ton of that on the back end.
There is not.
No.
You're right.
Let's get into your wheelhouse on prospects as we approach Young Stars on the weekend in Penticton at the South Okanagan Event Center. Cam, first of all, I see Elite Prospects has done its rankings of prospect pools across the National Hockey League. Let them know, where did we have the Vancouver Canucks, and how do you feel about their prospect pool at large?
21st is where Vancouver landed, and not a terrible spot, especially for a team that, just won their division and went on a decent playoff run, and spent assets to get there, right? It is moving draft picks, moving prospects out. It's they have two potentially impactful players, obviously, in Lekira and Tom Wilander. And then it's a substantial drop off, depending on if you consider Silovs a prospect or not still, because I think he's obviously an NHLer at this point too. But it has some more interesting players. Atu Ratu, I think, can be an NHL player. Archie Baines, Linus Karlsson. These guys can all play NHL games, NHL minutes. They'll probably play those minutes this year too. It's kind of on the blue line is where there's a lot of question marks behind Wilander. And this is going to be a really, really big season for him too, to really solidify himself as an elite defensive prospect, because the transition from the Swedish Junior League straight to the NCAA just doesn't happen for kids that are just drafted. Like he's literally a trendsetter, a pioneer. And it had its hiccups for him. He put up decent counting stats, but that's just part and parcel for the team that he was playing on as well. So, at Young Stars, Wilander won't be there. We're looking at Lekira to be an absolute head and shoulders above the competition type player, especially if he wants to see some NHL minutes this year. Is that he should be coming in, like we talked about Quinn Hughes being shot out of a cannon. I'm hoping Lekira shot out of a cannon in Penticton too. And really kind of lock in, like, I am ready to score a lot of goals in the AHL and maybe push for NHL minutes. But the depth in Vancouver it does fall off fairly quickly after kind of those first 3, 4, 5. Elias Pettersson on the blue line, I'm a big fan of his as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in Penticton and kind of rattle some bones and
I was going to ask you, give me a stealthy prospect that you like from the Canucks pool, but is it EPD? Would that be the guy?
It is.
Yeah,
it is for sure. And when I did the Canucks write up for the prospect series, I got some like oohs. And when I put him at number 4, and I would have had him at 3, but I had to put Silovs there at 3. I really think that he's going to be like that homegrown fan favorite, tough as nails, number 4 guy that
number 4 guy. Wow.
Okay. I think he's got second pair upside. And I don't even think it's that much of a stretch. Like I know a lot of people think that he's somewhat limited offensively, but that's not what you pay him for. Like he can move the puck well enough. Sure, he'll blow an outlet pass where he'll miss a guy by a few feet at times, but I think as he acclimates to the North American pro game, that'll come, and it'll just be that straightforward kind of meat and potatoes player. But like, he is so much fun. He's like exuberant with his defensive play and his physicality, and he's just off ice too, like players gravitate to him. Like he's a funny kid. He's got a great personality on him. I really think that he's a smart kid too. He's got a good head on his shoulders when you talk to him. I think he's going to be a player. I think he's got definite second pair upside, and one of these ones that you absolutely need to find in the second, third round, right? That those type of players that you can come up, you can pay them their $875 for a few years. They don't cost you a ton of money, but they can make a big difference. And especially in the spring, when, like you said, it gets back to being that old school throwback hockey, he's going to thrive when he's like 23, 24.
His feet are good enough. He can make the turns and maintain gap control and all that stuff.
It's going to be a process. It's going to be a process. He's going to get danced in the AHL this year as a rookie. We saw it even in the handful of shifts he got last year down the stretch, is that, there were some really bright moments for him, but there was also, he got turnstile a little bit too, speed off the rush. And he's going to have to learn, and he's going to have to adapt, and he's going to get that four-way mobility up and his pivoting. But I do think that there's a strong enough base there that he can build upon it. And like I said, he's a hard worker and he's a smart kid. And I've always said it, if you are smart and you can work hard, you can improve and be a defenseman like that. You don't need to be super skilled to succeed in that position.
Amazing.
Boy, after listening to that, I think the biggest complication will be, what are we going to call him when he gets here? He's going to need to find a nickname that isn't Petey.
DPD. Yeah. DPD.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We can workshop, but we got some time.
Exactly. Yeah. We do have some time.
What's his middle initial? Things like that.
And the best news is we've got some time too, Cam, every Tuesday on this program going forward here during hockey season. Thanks for this, buddy, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me, boys.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com.
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog is the Retriever Golden Ale.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center and from the BC Lions practice facility. Back at it after a victory Friday over the Montreal Alouettes. It's their quarterback, Nathan Rourke. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thanks for the time. Our first chance to talk to you since you've come back. What's this last month been like for you, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a whirlwind. Things have happened really quickly. But at the same time, I feel like I've just kind of got back into the groove. And it's been great to be back with this group, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of things that I'm really familiar with in terms of the coaching staff and playbook and everything. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great to play again.
What's a typical day for Nathan Rourke look like?
Yeah, I mean, we'll lift in the morning, early morning, before meetings. We get to meetings, install for the day, get out into the practice field, practice. We'll watch the film, and then we'll get ready for the next day, and that usually takes a while. And then we'll go back home, have dinner with my wife, and go to bed. So it's kind of been rinse repeat for the last couple of weeks, but that's the process. And again, it's something I've been familiar with since back when I got drafted here in 21. So,
what time does the lifting start, though?
I'm usually in there around 6:30, 6:45.
I gotcha. And when you do have spare time, an hour or so, whatever it is, what do you like to do in the city?
I'm not really big in terms of staying downtown in the city, so unless it's spending time with family. So whenever I do have a free time off, I'm usually just spending time with my wife and probably watching some, dumb TV show or something. But then other than that, I'm trying to be around the facilities, trying to work with Rob Williams, my throwing coach, and trying to get better.
Trying to get more wins. You guys have got a couple of them. Honestly, your 4 games since you came back, they are the 4 most different looking games aesthetically that you could possibly write up. I don't think you probably would say that any of them are the perfect game just yet, but you're getting wins, and you got 2 wins against the best 2 teams in the league. So I was wondering about your mindset coming out of that game, because I know how particular you are and you want things perfect, chasing perfect, even if you may never get there. So are you able to calm yourself down knowing, hey, we did just beat the 2 best teams in the league?
Yeah, I think so. I think when we look back on the last 2 weeks, we see a lot of growth. I think that we've gotten to a rhythm as an offense. Obviously, coming off of a 5-game losing streak, there's a lot of things that you want to fix and you want to correct. And I thought we were able to do that. But I do look at the 2 losses, and I see us kind of getting into our own way and getting and not playing complementary football, and we did that. We did the opposite kind of in our 2 wins. So the formula for us is not complicated. It's simple. We just have to be able to execute. And I think that we proved to ourselves that we belong in that conversation to one of the better teams in the league. And obviously the win last week going into a situation where, they were the best team in the league in terms of the record, and going into their field and their environment, which was a great environment to play in, and having to make that trip all the way over from BC and playing on them on a short week when they're coming off a bye, like all those different things kind of proves to us that we're, it doesn't matter if the odds, for lack of better terms, are against us. I think we can come out and we can win. And I think that's important for us at this point in the season.
What's William Stanback giving you guys here in the last month?
Yeah, he's been incredible. I mean, he's really risen to the occasion. I mean, obviously our offensive line has done a fantastic job giving parting the sea for him up there. But he's just such a workhorse. Out of the backfield. Obviously, in the pass game, he's been great. That just keeps the defense on the toes if they have to account for somebody out of the backfield. But then when you can, as a quarterback, hand the ball off and know that we're going to get 4, 5, 6, maybe more yards, that's just great for us in terms of our offensive efficiencies, putting us in some good spots and staying out of second and long.
So much was made, Nathan, of that first game and dropping in short week, very little practice time. You tell us, how long should it take to be fully in sync with everything on the offensive side of the ball, and are you there now?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I was closer than the Winnipeg game. Definitely difficult. I mean, going in against playing anybody, but would have been difficult. But playing against the Bombers, like they're just been so good for so long, and they've got such good players, and they had a good plan for us. So unfortunately, we don't get to have them again before the playoffs. So we'll have to wait until then, but to get a rematch. But I think we'll be better then. I think it's good to kind of get the reps with some guys and kind of get back into the feel for things. And I really just haven't had the opportunity to be on the field, and kind of the game I think early on was a little fast, so just having that slow down again I think has been good. And I think I'm getting better every week. I think offensively we're getting better every week, so hopefully I can continue.
What other adjustments did you have to make, and have you had to make over the last month?
Yeah, I mean, just having to throw. I've been throwing as much as I can just to try to get the spin on the ball back, and trying to get my timing down with my footwork, and just trying to do everything I can to when I get onto the field to think as less as possible, right? When you come into a new system, there's things that are a little bit aren't automatic yet. You're thinking a lot more, and you're not doing things that are maybe you've done easier in the past. In 22, I think, that was my second year in the offense. I'd gotten reps of it. I had a lot of reps in practice that year. Things were coming pretty seamlessly, and I was able to not think out there and just go play. And I think that takes a little while to be able to get back into that, as much as you'd like it to be automatic.
You mentioned the spin on the ball. Is the bigger CFL ball a thing? Like, does that take time to adjust to?
I think it does. It's not necessarily bigger. The laces are just different. So the laces in the CFL ball stick out, and the ones in the NFL are stitched in. So it's just a little bit of a different feel. Mm-hmm. But our guys here do such a great job, with doing the balls, and they make it good. So once we were able to kind of get that straight away, and I was able to kind of feel like I was getting adjusted to that. It's just a matter of getting reps and stuff like that.
Looking back in your career now, which one's easier to throw? Which one do you prefer to throw?
Yeah, I think it just kind of depends. I do love throwing the CFL ball. I think when you throw a pure, CFL ball, like it's really beautiful to come out with the
satisfying.
With the rings on it, because the CFL ball is not. It's if you throw any type of wobble, you can see it. It's really awesome.
Right.
Away with it a little bit more, because it's harder to see. So, but with the CFL ball, like a true spiral is really tough. It really cool, because it's so tough to throw. Sometimes it feels like.
That's funny.
But it's been good to get back to throwing this ball.
People always talk about your reads being so good, like at a young age with relative inexperience, just how quickly you were able to make your reads. Do you feel like you're at the same speed you were 2 years ago, and do you consciously feel like that is one of your superpowers there?
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like I'm there yet. Like I said, I think that once I get to the point where I'm thinking less, I think I'll be at that point. But the good thing is that I feel like I'm getting better every single week, and I think it's just settling back into this offense. And I think the biggest thing is with the reads and everything is just buying into what Jordan Maximek is asking us to do as quarterbacks, and just kind of going through it as quickly as possible and trusting your eyes and being decisive. I think all those type of things have just allows a lot of success in this offense, and I think that's been proven, with VA doing the exact same thing in my shoes and having success in this offense. And really anybody, if you look back and this type of offense, it seems like it's very quarterback friendly. So it's just a matter of buying into that and trusting the system.
And how's that going with the two of you back in tow and shoulder to shoulder as 1-2?
Yeah, he's been great. VA's been great. I'm such a fan of his. He's been such a pro and been very supportive. And obviously coming off of injury, I think it was great for the team to be able for the timing to work the way that it did. But we all know that it takes two to win in this league, and we're certainly understanding that. And he's just a great locker room guy. He's been a great leader, and it's really great to have him back and to have him here and part of this process.
What did it mean to you to be a part of the Touchdown Pacific experience and bring CFL football to Victoria?
Yeah, it was awesome. They did such a great job. I mean, it's a testament to Mr. Doman and the rest of the staff there. They did the business ops. They did a great job with putting that event on. It was, as a player, it was really fun to be a part of. Very kind of an intimate setting in terms of the fans there. They were right on top of us, and they were loud, and they were having a great time, and obviously to be able to win in the way that we did was even more special on a beautiful day there. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. The whole week was. It kind of felt like a bowl week that we were out on a different place and kind of busting the practice and stuff like that. And it was kind of a interesting week, but I thought that it was really special to be a part of, and hopefully we can do that in the future.
The Salmon Bowl. We should rename it.
I love it. I want to do it every year. Hey, we had some fun with this with our boy Farhan. Take us through what happened with the halftime interview. Tell us about what happened through your eyes.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of doing stuff in halftime because I never feel like the job's done, right? I always, as quarterback, you get signaled out more than any other position, and I feel like there's just, in general, in terms of media and stuff like that, there's more opportunities to speak to other voices, and I always felt like the halftime, there's other people who have, who you could talk to, and so I've always been not wanting to do the halftime stuff. I'm more than happy to do it after the game, but during the game, I've never been a fan of that, and said that I had to do it this week, so I did it. And then as soon as we started talking about my stats and stuff like that, I kind of just was like, all right, well, this isn't going the way that I wanted it to, so I didn't plan on doing it. And I apologized to Farhan about it, but and said it won't happen again. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what I was thinking, and I just want to make sure that we're not getting complacent. We still got a job to do, and I don't want to have to take any unnecessary attention, off of the rest of the team and what we're doing on the field, rather than just talking, about what I've done in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time on this show. Like on top of how difficult the position is to play just physically, then you have the emotional side where you have to deflect the credit and you have to shoulder the blame as the quarterback. And that seems like something that you've got down pat. That seems like something that comes maybe a little more natural to you than it does to other guys. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I see football as just the epitome of a team sport. It's just really one of those sports where you can't have, especially on offense, you can't have 10 guys doing their job, 11 guys doing their job, and then one guy mess up. Like, it's just, you have to lean on each other. You have to be able to do things together to make plays, and there just happens to be one position that is singled out more than others, and I just don't think that is, in the reality of it, is fair. And so I understand that that's part of the job, but at the end of the day, I just love the game, and I love keeping the game part of the game, and that's all I really care about.
Okay, so if I'm Rick Campbell's lawyer, though, you didn't actually answer any of the questions, so does that count as the last halftime interview. He said you have to do one last one, and then you're exonerated for the rest of the season. Does that count?
I hope so. I hope so.
I think so. Nathan Rourke's lawyer says yes.
Yeah.
Hey, tell us what you're up against. Friday back home at the Dome here. Tell us what you're up against Toronto.
Yeah, we're excited for this one. Obviously, to be back in BC Place. The Argos they're kind of a interesting part in their season as well. Obviously, getting their quarterback back, put up a lot of numbers on offense. So we know that offensively we have to do our part. Their defense, they've had some issues with injuries beginning of the season, but they're playing really fast. They're playing smart. They're doing what they can, and it should be good to should be a good one this week.
We're looking forward to it, Nathan. We thank you for the time here. All the best Friday and going forward. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.